You can over this episode 40 hours early on our Patreon, patreon.com/indieheadspodcast. By joining us for as low as $1 a month, you'll receive episodes early and gain access to our Discord server. All of our upcoming mainline episodes we up on our Patreon 40 hours before it hits our public podcast feeds. But if you're hearing this via our Patreon feed, we thank you so much for your support. We especially want to thank our Real Ones patrons, including Becca Etienne, Jordan Bukowski, James Boss, Holiday Kirk, Tyler, Marcy Anime, Chance Holdup, Delaney Miller, Raina Cruz, Josiah Duncan, Jenna LaFleur, Matt Cameron, Grant in the Back of My Dragula, Pablo Escobar's Hippos, Jackson Christ, Alec Felder, Matthew Taylor, Braden Hare, Drew Wharton, I Like Books, Jonathan David, Matt Kapazinski, Mark Barry, Darian Fisher, Cal 50, No One's Refused Pimped Out Dave Matthews Event, Chris Wade, Jacqueline Kadiga, Midwest Maxwell, Kevin John, Jake Wald, Eraser Ray Baby, Rob Marino, Max, Dylan, Sandy Nemo, Waffle113, Gavin 490 Freak, and Maze Farms. To become a real one, consider supporting us for $5 a month on Patreon, or receive a bonus episode every month and get a shout out at the top of the pod. Anyways, though, enjoy the episode.
Real emo only consists of the DC emotional hardcore scene and the late 90s screamo scene. What is known by Midwest emo is nothing but alternative rock with questionable real emo influence. When people try to argue that bands like Morgan Gannum are not real emo, while saying that Brian Pumper is, I can't help not to cringe because they are just as fake emo as Morgan Gannum, plus the pretentiousness. Real emo sounds energetic, powerful, and somewhat hateful. Fake emo is weak self-pity and a failed attempt to direct energy and emotion into music. Some examples of real emo are Missing Jimmy, Young Jimmy, Nickname for Richard, the only real emo band from the Midwest scene, and Barely March. Some examples of fake emo are Brian Pumper, Morgan Gannum, and Rob Zombie. Emo belongs to hardcore, not to indie, pop punk, alt-rock, or any other mainstream genre.
Look, so again, some emo players, they get in front of the camera. They don't they can't play real emo. Okay, that's our theme song.
I love this one.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Indieheads podcast, episode number 205. I'm your host, Maddie, at Moravian Prince on Twitter. I am joined by Natalie and special guest Jenna. And Jenna, why are we here? What are we here for?
So, the origins of this playlist go back, I guess, almost a year at this point to when I sent in the Songs to Trans Your Gender To playlist. And there was one particular song on there that I guess the people on that episode didn't take too kindly to it. To quote Gavin in the Discord after the fact, the ladies do not like Guy Picciotto stomping around and yelling about bodies and spaces. So, to avenge my hometown of Washington, D.C. after the slander that was heaped on Fugazi a year ago, I have subjected you guys to, a whole list of songs by D.C. bands that I enjoy.
I will say right off the top, you will find that I am kinder to this Fugazi song than last time. So you have already the redemption arc is underway.
All right.
And I'm from the Midwest. I've only been in the DC area like once or twice, but it was Arlington, Virginia, not like actual DC. Shouts out to our dear boy Jeremiah, a Arlington resident, or at least used to be, maybe, I don't know. That's where I say. Just shouts out to Jeremiah, who I think we were gonna have on this episode before it got like delayed a bunch. So apologies, Jeremiah, but I'm very happy for him because I knew everything but the Girl album got announced, so I'm very happy for him. But here we are, DC songs. I'll just give my preemptive thoughts out about this playlist. This is a good collection of songs. This is just like a bunch of good songs, which makes this episode potentially difficult to record because we get so used to this podcast. We've gotten so used to just talking about bad songs or just talking about songs that like aren't just like there's a silliness to them. You know, it's like there's some kind of silly thing attached to them. This is just a case where it's like these are just like a bunch of really good songs that chart the history of the music of Washington, D.C.
We once made an episode where we were like, now let's do a silly one, and we just got stuck in that mode forever.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so I've arranged this playlist chronologically, so it starts in the early 80s and continues up until this year. It's sort of divided into two halves. The first half is from like 1982 to 2001, and then there's sort of a big chronological leap, and then the second half is 2014 to 2022. Because I think those are two time periods where, in my opinion, alternative music in DC has been at its peak.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into it. What is our first song, Jenna?
Our first song is Banned in DC by Bad Brains from their self-titled album.
Woo!
All right, let's hear it real quick. I gotta get more into Brad. I was just about to say Brad Brains. I have a cold, everybody. I have a cold, so I'm suffering through it for y'all, for the podcast. I love the people. But yeah, I need to get more in Bad Brains. Again, as someone whose favorite punk album of all time for a while, and probably still is, Black Flag Damaged. Yeah, I need to check out more Bad Brains.
Oh yeah,
because the song is sick.
I was one of those people who, like, freshman year of college, like, I got very obsessed with Bad Brains to the point where they were like the only punk artist that I like was really obsessed with, and like basically, like, with no other context whatsoever, was like on the basis of this self-title, was just like they're the best punk artists around, like, and just it becomes that kind of mindset. But like the thing is, they're still very damn good, and like this album is great. Eye Against Eye, also very good. But like this album just rocks as like one of the great like cassette era like raw underground punk records that's also secretly not really a punk record and kind of like a reggae record. It's Bad Brains are just if you discount the weird homophobia thing they had to backpedal, the Bad Brains are very cool.
Yeah, I feel like in the 80s, it's just like if you weren't homophobic, that's just like that's the minority. If you were not homophobic,
you were either two sexualities, homophobic or gay.
pretty much. I mean, yeah, it is an unfortunate blight on the history of punk, early punk music, and just like a lot of genres in general, a lot of popular genres in general. I mean, hip hop arguably still has a homophobia problem in many ways, and punk still does, obviously, to some extent. It's like I said, but in the case of everything, it's better now, but still, it's better. It's better now, but like it's not as good as it could be, But obviously, strides have been made. But I just want to see if there's anything in the Bad Brains Wikipedia page that is interesting to see, because we find some gold here, and I'm not saying anything that's gold. That's the issue of this episode. There's not, again, is that like these are again, this is a great podcast. This is just a great episode. Like, this is just a great playlist to listen to. We're gonna find some guys. We're gonna. I assure you, we will find some guys if we can.
We just gotta dig through the like diamonds in order to find the rough this time.
Exactly. And there's stuff definitely when we hit more of the modern era stuff, there's definitely things that I'll have takes for, because like, hey, I was around, I was following this shit pretty. In the famous words of James Murphy, I was there. And in 1982, I was not alive. I would not be alive for another 15 years. And I'm trying to figure out what were my parents up to in 1982. I think my dad was bouncing around like multiple colleges before finally graduating. Don't really know what my mom was up to. We're definitely not listening to Bad Brains. I can tell you that for sure. I guess the interesting thing is Rick Ocasek produced their follow-up record.
Yeah.
Like, he's got an interesting, like, obviously he's, obviously from the Cars and, producing the, a number of Weezer records,
He also produced that one Guided by Voices album, Do the Collapse.
Holy shit, yeah, he did.
He's got a very, it's a very interesting production discography for a guy that, like, pretty much off jump was like a kind of a pop guy, essentially. Like, was, Cars blew up pretty quickly. Like, yeah, like, I'm trying to see, I'm trying to see if there's any other, like, production stuff. Like, again, he has a pretty strong history in a lot of like early punk music. I mean, he produced, Suicide, Bad Brains, Alan Vega, Patti Smith. Wait, hang on. Is it Patti Smith or? Oh, there's another Patti Smith.
Is that a lie?
It's Patti Smith with a Y, and it's track. It's I Run Right Back from the Caddyshack 2 soundtrack in 1988.
Somewhere
also,
this is the mirror version of her. Real life Patti Smith was performing the song with the N-word for years. Then doppelganger Patti Smith was doing this instead.
Shh. Yeah, this guy, again, for a guy that like was a new wave guy, very intrigued that he has a very strong history as a like punk producer. Like that's pretty crazy. Good for Rick. Although the sad thing with Rick is that obviously he's dead. Rest in peace. And also he almost fucked up Carsey Headrest's career in 2016. But thankfully they had enough momentum, and thankfully the vinyl market was not as crazy as it is right now, where you know, like if that shit happened now, like fuck, like yeah, Carsey Headrest would be dead in the fucking water. You know, like oh shit, we can't press our records for another year. Like, well, we're fucked.
I'm gonna say it, he also made the song better. The original version of the song did not work as well.
Yeah, I've got the original version. It's all right, but yeah, I definitely like how Will flipped it. But yeah, this is a good song. Bad Brains, good band. Probably I need to listen to more Bad Brains, especially this record. As sadly on this episode, I feel like there's a lot of people we should have had on this episode, and like we should have had one of our good friends on the pod and a true punk, Ivan. The true punk king Ivan. Talk about his favorite punk bands like Haim. Although Haim betrayed him recently by opening for they're gonna be opening for Taylor Swift, and that's not a punk move. That's a very unpunk move. So
yeah. Before we move on, I just wanted to give some context for my rationale behind choosing this song. So
yeah.
Obviously, to start out the playlist, I feel like it would, you can't have a playlist of the best punk music from DC without having Bad Brain, because they started the whole thing off in a lot of ways. They inspired a lot of the people who came after, and the subject of the song, Banned in DC, they were literally like blacklisted from a lot of the clubs in town because their fans were too rowdy and violent apparently. So that led them to move to other cities and spread the word of their music. And I think we will get to some Ian MacKaye stuff later on, and I think he would have a dissenting opinion on like, no, you got to focus on your hometown scene. You gotta focus on your local bands before anything else. But I don't necessarily ascribe to either sort of philosophy. I think you should just do what you see fit. And then also, so speaking of violent fans, that led to, in 1985, there was this sort of social movement in the DC punk scene called Revolution Summer, where basically a lot of the people who had been in bands up to that point, they sort of decided that they were going to pivot away from the sort of violent moshing and crowd surfing and violent audiences and stuff like that, and they were going to take their music and sort of make it a positive force for social change. So you started getting a lot of more socially conscious lyrics and things like that. And so one of the most influential bands that came out of that Revolution Summer is Rites of Spring, who we will now get to with their song For Want Of.
Alrighty. This song is fucking sick.
Yes.
This song is sick. I gotta listen to this record again. They should be calling Jenna good songs, because she's recommended me a bunch of good songs to listen to. But yeah, like, God, yeah. This again, I really cannot iterate enough. This is just a good playlist of songs, like really good songs here, and this shit is just like, it's really good. And I think like Bad Brains, this shit just reminds me of like. This like in an ideal Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtrack, this song should be on there. Like one of my favorite documentaries of all time is Bones Brigade Autobiography, and this is a track I'm like, how the fuck did I not hear this song on like the soundtrack of that movie? You know, like that fit right in with like the, you know, the classic 80s skateboarding scene.
It also rocks because I did not place that the playlist was chronological, and probably should have, given where it starts and ends. But like, it's funny listening to this back now because I basically crammed the entire playlist like right before we did this, and being like, oh, this is like a guitar lick that could be on like a mid 2010s like post-punk record. Like, it sounds basic. You could see the through line very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Rites of Spring famously are kind of considered the first emo band. You know, it was, the genre was called, like, emotional hardcore at the time, and, you know, the band members have said that they didn't really associate that label with their own music, but it's, you know, what got ascribed to them at the time and retroactively, so it's kind of what they're saddled with now, but you can definitely see, you know, looking at the lyrics, you know, there's a lot of, you know, very introspective stuff going on, you know, let's see, I'm just looking at the lyrics here, I tried to hide the heart from the head, and I said I bled in the arms of a girl I barely met. Like, that's, you know, that's some pretty stereotypically emo stuff right there.
Yeah, like, try to deny it, y'all, but yeah, it's some pretty emo shit, you know, like, and look what this band has wrought onto the world in its wake, you know, like,
yeah.
a lot of good music, a lot of bad music, but, you know, how could they have known? That's always the thing with like some of the you know, people that essentially, you know, innovate or, you know, start these genres. It's just like, how could they have known what it was going to become? You know, like, how could they have known that this was going to, you know, lead to a song like Emo Girl by Machine Gun Kelly? You know,
speaking of artists who ended up in Tony Hawk.
Oh God, yeah. Which, hey, I will say this: the first Machine Gun Kelly pop punk record is not bad. It's not bad. It's an okay record that has some pretty great songs. I've not listened to the one after that. I heard that was really bad. Even people that were like, oh, I kind of like the last one. Yeah, no, even they were like, all right, yeah, this shit's dumb and stupid. And now we have Blink-182 are back and put out a god awful song. But again, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Rites of Spring. And yeah, this song is sick. I need to listen to this record.
Yeah,
I got nothing else, man. Fuck.
Yeah, a lot of the bands that came out, you know, of that Revolution summer period, they were all, you know, pretty short-lived. I think, you know, Rites of Spring only existed for like a year and change. They only put out like one album and one EP, and that was it. And then they, you know, disbanded and went on to other stuff, which we will get to.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I think, you know, I first listened to Rites of Spring, I guess I would have been in college, you know, so like circa 2017 or 18. And I was trying to sort of, you know, get into the sort of, you know, history of my hometown musically, you know, because I was away from home at college, and I was sort of feeling, I don't know, a little bit disconnected from the place where I had grown up. And so I started, you know, listening to some of the formative bands of the DC music scene, and you know, I'm very glad I did, because you know, it's just a lot of good music.
Yeah, and I guess that leads us into song number 3, which is
Desert Sea by Jawbox from their self-titled 4th album.
Yeah, which this I guess is this so reading again. I've been pretty busy all day, so I've only gotten a chance to really listen to the songs. So this is like one of the first, like, I guess of the DC punk hardcore scene. This is one of the first bands, if not the first band, to sign to a major from that scene, if I remember correctly. Or
yeah,
am I wrong?
One of the first, I think. I don't know the history as well as, you know, somebody who would have been there at the time, but yeah. So I actually got into Jawbox a lot more recently than some of the other bands on here. I think they are one of very few bands that I have ever gotten into because they were like automatically suggested to me by an algorithm. Like, I almost never listen to you know, automatically generated playlists and stuff, but like one day I was listening to something and I had forgotten to forgotten to turn off the sort of, shuffle automatically when you're done with this album. And I guess I had been listening to something similar to this, and it started playing Jawbox, and I was like, oh, this is really good. I should listen to more of them. This was the song that it started playing, and to this day I think it's probably still my favorite Jawbox song, just because I have that emotional connection to it because it was the first one that I heard. Also, I'm just a sucker for weird time signatures, and this one's in 5/4.
Yeah, this is sick. Like, I think like you're definitely hearing like, so this like from '96, you're definitely hearing like, okay, this is definitely like a band that is very much informed by the the alt rock movement of the '90s, where it's like, this has like pretty like this definitely has the structure of a pop song, like it very has sort of like a pop song structure, but like taking like the best elements of like the more poppy elements of alt rock and some of the DC hardcore stuff, and kind of combine them two for like a kind of like sort of sludgy, I guess sludgy is maybe not the right word per se, but just sort of like a like this is like, this feels like DC hardcore, like proto butt rock in a way. Like, and I say that absolutely as a compliment, as a butt rock enjoyer, but this is definitely like the most butt rock song on the entire playlist.
I can see that. Yeah,
and I really dig that.
For me, it feels very much indebted to a lot of the like similar like post-hardcore stuff in that area, in that era. Like, I think it honestly, weirdly enough, I think the things that it like reminds me most of are like stuff like kind of like Unwound or like Jawbreaker, where it's like this kind of like very moody, slinky stuff, but it also like the choruses can be belters. Like they can just fucking go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, speaking of Jawbreaker, I always get Jawbox and Jawbreaker confused, which is something that I probably shouldn't be doing, but the names are similar. What can I say?
They're similar, and they're both operating in like similar spaces of like, they're both punk bands essentially, but obviously one is a, full blown pop punk band, and one is, not, it is poppy, but would not say they're a pop punk band per se.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, this album that song came off of, that was their last full album, and then they disbanded for a long time, and I think only just this year did they start putting out new material again. I think they put out, it was I'm trying to find it. I think it was like a cover of a Wire song, and then a re-recording of one of their old songs. They put out just like a 7-inch earlier this year, and it was it was very good. What can I say? It's
it's a cover of a Wire song, and then 2 songs re-recorded from Grip.
Okay.
So let me see if it's on Spotify. I would assume it's only on Bandcamp right now. But yeah, again, a surprising reunion. And also, I think, if I remember, was this band? Yeah. A former Indieheads podcast guest from like way back in the day.
Holy shit.
Brooks Harlan, who was the co-founder of War on Women, is now in Jawbox. I'm not sure if Harlan was on the episode that we did where we interviewed them, but again, that's a deep pull from the past. That's a band name I've not heard in a very long time. That's one of those Ethan pulls, because again, that's when Ethan was a much more active member, and like we had got like Emperor X and War on Women, and some fucking some podcast guy named Jamie that got canceled like a year or two after he came on our podcast. I don't know. I don't remember. We took down that podcast a long ass time ago, so I don't remember this shit. Again, anything before the Butt Rock number ones is a fucking dream to me. Like it's long gone from the memory in many ways. But that brings us to our next song, which like this next run, basically this song until like the Priest and Flasher songs, like this is just like a fucking killer run of songs. And what is up next, Jenna?
Okay, up next we have The City by the Dismemberment Plan from the 1999 album Emergency and I, which in my opinion is the best album ever.
Yeah, I finally listened to Dismemberment Plan for the first time earlier this year, as my coworker played them in the office, and I was just like, what is this? And he's like, it's Dismemberment Plan, it's Emergency and I, and I was like, shit, do I like this band? Like, shit. Like, again, usually, like, most stuff, like, we play in the office, it just sort of goes, like, in one ear, out the other. It's kind of hard to get, like, a true listen to it. But I was just, like, immediately, like, pulled in. I listened to the record when I got home, and I liked it, but, you know, like, I must have been busy or distracted to do something else, but, like, this song was on the playlist, and, like, I've just been listening to this song on repeat, like, all day. Like, this is maybe one of the greatest songs I've ever heard. Like,
and you're right to say it.
This is a fucking insane song.
It's very funny that you're the moderator of Indieheads and this somehow eluded you for so long.
Look, I have this was a reoccurring bit in the early days of the podcast, and probably still is true now. I had a lot of blind spots. Like,
yeah.
Like I'm only, again, still I'm still like a relatively new fan of indie, like not getting into it until like really like 2013, 2014 is really when I dove deep, and there's still like a lot of like classic records that either I've not heard or like listened to once like a long ass time ago I've not gone back to.
See, it's very funny because my origin story with the Dismemberment plan is purely from seeing Emergency and I bandied about as like one of those foundational records on the subreddit. And my story is weird because I think I actually listened to Uncanny Valley first, which I have...
Oh, wow. That's a weird starting place for the Dismemberment plan.
Yeah, no, starting with the post-revival one, which I've soured on over time, but like at the time I was like, I don't see why this one's so bad, and then I listened to Emergency and I was like, I don't really get the appeal of this one, which was a bizarre fucking take.
Wow.
But like this song always, like this one and like You Are Invited, like were the ones that like were very like undeniable even then. And then obviously like I gained taste by the end of like my college time, and this album is fucking perfect. It's like I don't know what to say that hasn't already been said. Like it always just rocks that the Dismemberment Plan is a band that can like weld these like very unlikely grooves that are very skilled. Their drummer is like for like my money's worth, like probably one of the best who has ever like been in a post-hardcore band. But they also have like
drums
these,
and drums and Struck are nuts.
Joe Easley is the drummer's name.
But also it's this song is like a big example of like I love their ability to just weave these like very big sentiments with this like very almost effortlessly like erudite way of putting things. And like this song is like only has it in a few instances, but like I always think of the lines up and over the iridescent grids, out and away past the bar fights and neon lights. It's just like Travis Morrison at like his height has the ability to string together like such insane lines like they're nothing. And this being like the big showstopper like toward the end of the record before it kind of like has its like come down is just, it's undeniable.
Yeah, it's funny because, like a lot of Emergency and I, just lyrical content is about, feeling sort of, I don't know, lost and not knowing your way in life as a 20-something in DC. And the first time that I ever listened to this album, I listened to it in full while waiting at a bus stop for a Tinder date to show up, who never did. Which is, if that's not the most fitting, first listen to Emergency and I that's ever happened, then I don't know what is.
That's like, goddamn.
If they made Emergency and I today, they'd have to call it Hinge Urgency and I.
Oh shit. Oh, whoa. Bring out the hot takes.
But yeah, no, I love, it's, you know how people say sometimes when it's like people have references to like New York City or whatever, you're like having these like hyper specific references and artists is threading in, and you've like never been there and you're like, oh hey, I know that. That's kind of like what listening to the Dismemberment Plan is like, where it's like I've like passed through DC like every now and again, but like the amount of things, like very specific references that Travis Morrison puts in there, like when he's being like walking down a K Street to some temping job, I'm like, you.
Yeah. Yeah, Natalie, I know that you're a Terrified stan first and foremost, but like yes. My opinions on that one are kind of in the middle. It's got some good songs, but I feel like Travis's writing on that one hadn't quite reached its peak yet. Whereas I think between Terrified and Emergency, it just took this leap into the stratosphere in terms of the sheer emotion that he can pack into his lyrics.
Yeah, he definitely levels up as a lyricist. I will say part of why I like Terrified is, this is my little like corner where I'm gonna give a little plug for Terrified, because Terrified for me is like at present like about even for Emergency and I for me, but like Terrified for me is cool because it's very much an album about messiness and just very deep like character flaws and self-deprecation in a way that like this album still has some of the phantoms of, but like some of it is definitely cleaned up and a little bit more kind of like rigidly, like you could tell that like Travis has like put the lines, even the ones that are kind of like awkwardly off the cuff, through the ringer, whereas like Is Terrified feels like it was like written in a haze at like 2 a.m. like over the course of a week, and they just like threw it together on the record like they knew that it was their only shot at recording it. And there's a lot of like interesting things there. I think funnily enough, I think some of his Terrified has aged worse than Emergency and I, but I think that only adds to its like weird charm for me. Plus it's also, for me, it's their like most post-hardcore-y album, whereas like this one has its like ferocious moments, Emergency and I, but it also is like where they start shifting a little bit more toward the melodic, which works incredibly here, but it's like sometimes you just gotta have those like pummeling riffs.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just say with this song in particular, like this is a song that like I should have had this song in my life when I was like 18 or 19 years old. Like that, like this song, it still fucking hits, obviously, but if I was like 19, 20 years old, like when I was still living in my hometown and just like being like really tired of my hometown, this song would have been like a fucking revelation for me, you know? Like I'm like, holy shit, this is exactly how I feel. Like, oh my God, you know? But you know, but that's still the good thing, is that like I still hold on to those memories and I still hold on to those feelings, and that's what just still makes the song hit so hard, you know. And I also love the little chintzy synths, you know, like adds a little flavor, a little texture. I love it. It's great. This is one of the best songs I've heard on this podcast in a pretty long time. Like this is incredible song. But our next song is one song that I'm actually pretty familiar with already before Jenna put it on the playlist, which I'm very happy Jenna did, because I've been in love with the song for like the past year now, and that song is
"And the Washington Monument Blinks Goodnight" by Q and Not You.
Oh, hear those guitars.
Scuzzy like panic chord.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I hear that. Oh
God, No Kill
this
No
song is
Beat
so
Beat
good.
is such a fucking great album. Like I hadn't listened to any Q and Not You in like a couple of years when I first was like listening to this album, and hearing this come on the playlist is like a reminder of like, oh, I would probably love this record even fucking more now. Like I love little scuzzy guitars and post-hardcore bullshit. Give it to me.
Yeah, this is just incredible fucking song. The drop, like just the crazy time signature shit. The screechy guitars. It sounds like something you'd hear on like a girl band, a Gilla band record, you know, like, and the just like the little fucking snotty, snarly vocals. Like, oh God, the song is just fucking incredible. Like, if you've not heard the song, if there's one song from this playlist, like even with The City, if there's one song where like you gotta listen to this song, it's this one. Like, this song is nuts. It's so good. And it's only like 2.5 minutes too. Like they pack so much in such a short amount of time.
These like drum fills.
Oh God. Because I think I heard this for the first time like a year ago. Because I saw someone on my Twitter doing like a drum cover of this. And I was holy shit, what is this song? And then like, what's the song that I listened to it for like a week straight? Like, this song is so good. And when all those guitars come in, like, just like this wall of sound, like, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. It's so fucking good. Oh.
Yeah. I think with regards to Q and Not You, I think honestly never mind. Actually, I was gonna say something, but I'll save it for later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Anyway, this is a great song. You know, chose it for this playlist partially because, it's got the Washington Monument reference in the title, but also because it's probably the best song on that first album.
I'm trying to think which one's the one that I like really gravitated toward on that first album. It's not this. It's gonna fucking bug me. I didn't like look it up beforehand, but I'll pull it up now as somebody else is talking.
Yeah, like good song. I need to listen to this the full record again. I know friend of the pod, Miranda from Endless Scroll is a big Q and Not You fan, and of course, if Q and Not You exists today, they'd be called QAnon and Not You.
Oh, I think it's Hooray for Humans is the one that I really dig off of this one, because I think that one is, if I'm remembering correctly, that's the one that has like the just like neat little groove, and it's kind of like one of the more melodic ones on the record.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this was their first album out of 3, and I think one of the band members left after this one, and sort of the musical direction sort of shifted as their discography moved onwards. Went a little more electronic, I think, with the second and third albums, but still very good. A lot of, I would almost call it like proto Gremlin core in some places.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, just
if we're gonna go back and do another volume, if we did like volume 0, this would probably like this would be like a or if we went back and redid volume 1, this would definitely be like a retraction to like put in me like, hey, this is like one of the first Gremlin bands, probably.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of shit.
Honestly, the Dismemberment plan as well would kind of fit in that. Just sort of that.
Yeah,
that
really is terrified.
That really chaotic, frantic energy that they have.
Or even, like the stuff on like Is Terrified gets very Gremlin. Or even like there's a couple tracks off of Exclamation Point, their debut, that are very kind of Gremlin-y.
Yeah, but that leads us to our next song. And this is one of the probably, I would say, of this list, probably the most, probably the second, either the first or second most iconic band of the DC scene, or at least featuring probably the most important person of the DC scene, of course, being, which I feel like it's a pretty safe take to be like, yeah, Ian MacKaye is like the most important person in DC punk history, considering that he probably is the reason it started in the first place, or one of the early people that kept it going, Mm-hmm. But what's our next song, Jenna?
Okay, our next song is Argument by Fugazi, the final track on their final album.
Yeah, I of course I know a little bit about Fugazi from our Band Can Be Your Life episode from Introducing, which again that their series on Our Band Can Be Your Life, great podcast series. If you've not listened to that series, like go listen to it. Like it's one of my favorite runs a podcast has ever done. And then just hearing this over the Fugazi, of course, essentially like in terms of the modern punk movement, Fugazi is kind of the first band of that movement. Of like they set a lot of the standards and set a lot of like rules in place of like that, like a lot of punk bands would go on to follow, like only doing all ages shows, obviously, $5 a show no matter what, the relentless touring cycle. Obviously, Ian started Discord Records. Is that right?
Yeah. It was him and Jeff Nelson.
Yeah. So it's just like, I mean, not even just the DC scene, but just like punk history. Like Ian is one of the most important figures in punk history. Like even if it's just one of those things, like even if it's just being the founding member of Minor Threat, or being the founder of Fugazi, or starting Discord Records, like any one of those things would have probably just been like, that's enough to be like one of the most important figures in punk history. But the fact that he has all 3 in his books and even more is just like, yeah, no, like it's undeniable.
I am very glad that, Jenna, you chose this one, because I feel like in a lot of ways this is like the inverse of the one that we had covered on the Songs to Trans Your Gender 2 episode.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, this is really fucking cool. I love this one. I was surprised by how much I dug this one, and I think I'm really into like the kind of like atmosphere it has. I like the like foreboding like bass intro that's like very spaced out. It feels very Slint in some places.
Yeah.
But like it's, I don't know, I think between kind of like the dynamic approach going on in this song and like the particular like vocal style at play here, this is kind of like more my speed in terms of I think what I'm looking for out of the band.
Yeah, so it's very interesting to me, like the way that Fugazi's sound evolved over the course of their career, right? So like when they first formed, you know, like Ian MacKaye was coming off of Embrace, and then before that Minor Threat, and then Guy Picciotto and Brendan Canty were coming from Rites of Spring, who we listened to earlier. And, you know, those were both, you know, very sort of high energy punk bands, and sort of as their career progressed, you know, you start hearing, you know, more influences from, I guess, you know, other you know, more sort of less punk, but just more, I guess, I don't know how to describe it, like, you know, indie, I guess, but I mean, indie is such a broad categorization that it's kind of meaningless. But yeah, like listen to this sort of, you know, interlude section that's happening now. Like you wouldn't have heard this on 13 songs, right?
No.
But that's part of what I like so much about Fugazi is, like, you know, there is something for everyone depending on where you look.
I might have to check this album out, because like hearing this where I was like expecting something alike to what we covered before, like I was really caught off guard by this in a really cool, and like, yeah, that interlude with the like electric piano and like what sounds like synthesized flute is just it's so fucking cool. Like, I love a band that will like mess around with that, with instruments like that.
Yeah, so, you know, Fugazi, they had, you know, two lead vocalists, right? So there's Ian MacKaye, who we're hearing on this song, and then there's Guy, who was the vocalist on the previous Fugazi song that I put on the Songs to Trans Your Gender 2 playlist. And, you know, there's, you know, you can definitely detect, you know, a sort of dichotomy between their writing styles, right? But you know, I think there's, I don't know, there is something to be, you know, something to be enjoyed from both sides of the coin. This is just this album, The Argument. It was their last album before they disbanded, probably for good, although they still say that they're on indefinite hiatus, so who knows. But I think I just always wonder whenever I listen to The Argument, like, what would their seventh album have sounded like? You know, if they had kept going for like just a few more years, like what sounds would we have gotten out of them? Because, like, you know, there's some tracks on that last album where it's like, this is just so incredible, and I just wish that they had, you know, pushed this a little bit further, like Night Shop and Strange Light. There's tracks like that I think would, you know, I only wish that those songs had, like, you know, heralded the beginning of you know, yet another act of their career.
Yeah, it's definitely intriguing that they again, of course, they sort of went on a definite hiatus, and like they're all on good terms, and like I think there was even some articles like they still play together, like they still, you know, like.
Yeah, Ian and the bassist Joe Lally, they're in a band together called Kariki that put out an album a few years ago.
So it's this case where it's like, of course, you know, Ian is very much a, you know, in many ways I respect it, a stickler in his values of, like, again, I'm not, you know, like, we're only playing shows that are only going to cost a certain amount of money, like, because again, how much money has been potentially thrown his way to like reunite Fugazi or Minor Threat or all these other bands, and he's just like, nope, we're not doing it. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's the famous story, right, about how, like, they apparently got offered like a literal briefcase full of money to sign to Atlantic at one point, and they were just like, nope, we're not doing it. Which,
again, big respect, even though our fake emo friend Brian Pumper would very much disagree with their lack of bag chasing. You know, he would be like, "What are y'all doing?" You know, like
they did not stay focused about the bag.
They did not stay focused about the bag, but Brian Pumper is in jail, and all the Fugazi members are not in jail. So you know, who won at the end of the day in this fake argument that I'm making up for this podcast right now? I have a cold, everybody. I have a cold.
Two questions. Do you think that Ian MacKaye knows who Brian Pumper is? And do you think that Brian Pumper knows who Ian MacKaye is?
No to those questions. No, absolutely fucking not. I feel like if either found out who they were, it'd just be like a tear in the space-time continuum. Like, there we go, bye-bye. Like,
Ian MacKaye could do the bag dance, but Brian Pumper couldn't do the argument.
Okay, if we have any music journalist friends that are listening to this podcast and you ever get a chance to interview Ian MacKaye, I need you to show Ian MacKaye and it's shaved. I need you to do this.
This does remind me though, speaking of music journalists, Chris Richards from Q and Not You is now the chief music critic for the Washington Post, and he has written an article about RXK Nephew.
Oh shit! Okay. So it is possible that Ian MacKaye knows who RXK Nephew is at the very least. Like that is that's
Ian
incredible.
MacKaye probably reads the Washington Post, so he probably
because he's like, again, he produced records for Q and Not You. You know, it's like, and he released them. It's like he's.
Let's see what my pal Chris wrote about this week. Oh, he's talking about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh my god!
Well, let me find this article because hold on. Maybe pause for a second while I find this.
Yeah, we can keep going on this theoretical deep dive. Oh my god, we gotta. Is there like a Fugazi or Minor Threat song, like an instrumental that could be turned into a rap beat? And can we get RXK Nephew to rap over that?
I should place the beat with him. RXK Nephew rapping over "Sweet and Low" from In on the Kill Taker. That would be something.
I'll make a loop. I'll send it to him for a beat placement. Like, let's do this shit.
I will help you pay for the beat placement, however much it costs. I will help. I will use the Patreon money for this. Like, I am happy
This is how we make our mark. Everything else doesn't matter for shit. It's getting an RXK Nephew song made.
Here is the RXK Nephew article by the guy from Q and Not You. I just sent it in Discord.
Oh yeah, I read this. This is a great read.
Hell yeah.
This is a great read. Definitely one of the. I think like this and the Stereo Gun piece that came out around the same time are both really good reads on RXK.
The Stereo Gun Artist to Know is still my favorite article about RXK Nephew, primarily just for the 5 paragraphs of lead about I think is it Jason Buford who wrote that, but like basically
double check.
Being unable to actually find RXK Nephew.
Yeah, the first part of the article is just being like, I don't think I'm going to interview RXK Nephew, guys. I think he's like not responding to my text messages. Like I'm at his hotel room and he's just like not here. Like, what's going on? Or like, I think he's just like, he calls my phone and be like, hey, you're so and so, right? It's Jason Buford. Like, hey, you're so and so. Yeah, we'll meet up in like Soho, I think, because I think he was in New York playing shows.
My favorite part is there's a bit in it where like he hasn't gotten a response from RXK Nephew, and RXK Nephew goes live on Instagram and is just like smoking weed, and Jason's just in the comments like, "Where are you at, bro?"
Hey, I'm on assignment, man. Like, my editors are gonna kill me.
I love that no matter the topic of the episode of this podcast, RXK worms his way in there.
He's the most important figure in music.
It has to come back to him. Like,
look,
of course, it always has to.
Previous generations, all music traced back to the Beatles. This generation, all music traces back to RXK Nephew. It's only logic.
Exactly. But let's move on to our next song as we start to enter more of the modern era of DC music. And what is our next song, Jenna?
Yeah, so this is where we have the big time skip from 2001 now to 2014 as we listen to And Breeding by Priests.
This is a killer song. I have a story about this, but I'll let y'all cook first on this song because I got a story.
This is still just the best Priest song. Like, this is they do stuff that's like of some like similar caliber on Nothing Feels Natural, but I think like for my money, like when I think about like what I really loved about like the best parts of Priest, it's just it all comes down to this song. Just the very like insistent bass line, Katie Alice Greer fucking screaming throughout the whole thing. The fucking Barack Obama killed something in me, and he's gonna get him for it.
Yeah, I mean, like that leads to my story, the final lines of this song. But I will say, yeah, getting more into the overall arc of Priest, it's one of the more sadder arcs of like 2010s indie, of here's this band, in 2017, the early, mid 2010s, and especially with their debut, Nothing Feels Natural, which is a great record. I listened to it earlier today. It's still a great record, holds up really well. They break through. I think they get Best New Music, like the first Best New Music of 2017, and like really being like the first like big breakthrough in the Trump era, essentially, and a good timed record for it. Basically just being like,
well, I think
of course
that album didn't that album come out around the inauguration? Was like
January 27th is when it came out, like right after the inauguration, and like was very present of being like, we didn't know this was gonna happen, but like we knew this was gonna happen. But great record. And then, their bassist Taylor leaves to join or to be full-time in our next band that we'll be talking about. But, and then, they pretty much just like faltered after that. Like they quite literally lost their rhythm and, just weren't able to recover because they put out, the Seduction of Kansas in 2019, which is not a bad record, but like compared to Nothing Feels Natural is a lot lesser, and definitely sounds like a band that like doesn't really know what their identity is.
I will go to bat for that album, but I do agree that it's a lot less immediate. Like it doesn't just like hit you full in the face like a lot of tracks from Nothing Feels Natural do.
Yeah, I mean, there's good stuff in the record. Like I really like the soundtrack a lot.
Jesus on Innocent.
That one's great.
Charlie.
I also love the music video to that is a direct allusion to Nine Inch Nails' March of the Pigs music video, which is a fucking great pull.
Nice. But unsurprisingly, after that record, they broke up pretty much. I mean, they broke up like months after that album came out. Like they're technically on indefinite hiatus, but like we'll see if they get back together because I think Katie's in LA now and she's doing her solo stuff. And I think the rest of the band is in DC, but Taylor's in Flasher. I think GL Jaguar's in a new band. I'm not sure what Danielle's doing at this point. I think she's running Sister Polygon still, the label that Priest started. But sorry to interrupt. Were you gonna say something, Natalie?
Oh, I was just gonna say like to the point. I think Seduction of Kansas is an interesting thing where it's like I tried to wrap my head around it like the year that it came out. I haven't revisited it since, but I feel like it's very much a case of regardless of like how people feel about it, it's very much a band in flux, not really knowing what to do, like very much like identity crisis. And I think that lack of like stability definitely shows through in the fact that they like faltered right afterward. I was also going to say I have like my main memories I associate with I forgot the name of this fucking EP for a second. It was like Bodies in Spaces and Bodies in Spaces.
Bodies in Spaces and Goops and Grinches.
But my main memory associated with it is I saw them like in this like era open for fucking Proto Martyr at like a back room in like a back room in like a Philadelphia underground club that was like maybe had like 100-person cap, and I did not know them at the time. I do not have any memories of that set, but like it was just very funny to see them blow up afterward and then just be like retroactively like, oh, them.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see Priests on their final tour before they disbanded at their hometown show at the 930 Club in DC. They covered Mother by Danzig, which was
hell yeah.
a lot funnier in retrospect now that I have the association with this podcast that song has taken on for me. But it was
everyone do the Mother challenge roll again. Everyone listening at home, do the Mother challenge real quick. Mother. But, sorry.
It was very sweet actually, because like at the end of the show, the show ended and everybody was like cheering, one more song, and when the band came out, they were like, we typically don't do encores, like we think that they're corny as fuck, but because you're our hometown and this is a very special show for us, we'll do one for you guys. And then they pulled out, I think it was Doctor from this first EP, and it was just a really wonderful moment of I like nobody in the audience I think knew at the time that the band was about to go on hiatus. But yeah, that was definitely one of my most treasured live music memories.
I'm pretty sad that I only got to see him the one time at Pitchfork Fest in 2017. I think they were playing a show in St. Louis, but I think it's whenever I moved to Chicago for a brief period, so I had to miss that show. But yeah, and I again, even if Seduction of Kansas was kind of a miss, I still miss Priest a lot, and I listened to Kitty Alice Greer's new soul record that came out earlier this year. It's all right. It's not quite my thing. There's some good songs on there, but yeah, I'm still kind of holding out some hope that they reunite someday. With Taylor, ideally, because it's kind of funny that Taylor left for Flasher, and then Flasher then had their own interpersonal band issues where now they're a two piece.
Yeah,
and they had a record come out this year that like didn't really make any waves. So
except with me, I will say that. Well, we will get to this soon, but I saw Flasher at their record release show for this new album, and it is honestly maybe the best concert that I have ever been to. It was just absolutely incredible.
Wow, damn. All right. So didn't mean to hate too much.
I'm
not listening to the album yet. I'm not listening. I'm just going off a general like what the general feeling feels like to me.
Yeah, I saw them. What was it? I saw them fucking open for Breeders at one point, which is very funny considering the name of the song. But I also saw them at like a very small, like 250-ish cap venue that is now closed in Boston, which is also where I saw the last Priest tour. So it's kind of poetic, but like that first album, which we are about to delve into, is I still like it a lot. Like there's a lot of good rippers on that one.
Yeah, I mean, should we move on to it now?
Hell fucking yeah.
Actually, I my story, my story. So in 2017, 2018, I wrote a blog post about this song in particular, as of course the last lines of the song being Barack Obama killed something in me and I'm gonna get him for it. That is one of the most powerful lyrics of the 2010s. Like that is, if I had to define, like if you had to define a generation's like political stance, it's that line of just like, we all got really inspired by Obama's campaign in the 2000s. He lured all of us progressives in and got us really into it, and then proceeded to completely disappoint us all and not enact any of the policies that he promised. And just we got to see the failures of the American government in real time across his 8 years as president. Like he got me inspired, he disappointed me, he killed something in me, and like I'm gonna get him for it. Just the anger and just the passion, just like how deranged she sounds as she continually says this. It's just like really powerful. But then on their tour for Nothing Feels Natural, they added some extra lines of Barack Obama killed something in me, fuck Donald Trump and his white supremacy. And I was just like, I agree, but like you didn't need to add that line of the song. Like it kind of like, I won't say completely like it doesn't like negate the point of the song, but it just feels like it's like punk music isn't subtle, it's never been subtle, but like that the line is so powerful as is. You don't need to add anything to it. It just cheapens it a little bit. And I still stand by that point, but I posted that article and then I think Katie called me out on Twitter about it, and and yeah, which I get it, like again, it's a case where it's like, yeah, of course I agree that Donald Trump is a white supremacist and he sucks, but like you didn't have to do you didn't have to do the oral, okay? You didn't have to add the line. It's perfectly fine as is. We like, again, if you're saying Barack Obama killed something in me and I'm gonna get him for it, unless you're a fucking idiot, you kind of understand, okay, these people probably also don't like Donald Trump, unless someone has listened to this song and like is like a right-wing Facebook boomer and is like, yeah, Barack Obama did kill someone to me. He killed my job, damn it.
Maddie, like, you're taking for granted the fact that Mishway could have been listening to the song.
Oh God.
God damn it. But yeah. And also I met Katie like a few weeks ago. She's really nice. I did not tell her. I did tell her that I'm an Indieheads moderator. I did not say that I wrote this blog post about her because I also forgot it. Because for one, I think I forgot that I wrote this blog post, and also it's like, no, she doesn't need to know. Like I don't. I don't want to burn, like I'm building bridges out here in LA. I don't want to burn any more bridges while I'm out here, or at least try my best not to, at least in the music industry. But let's move on to our next song. What is our next song, Jenna?
Okay, our next song is Pressure by Flasher.
All right, hang on, get a fucking Spotify. There we go. This song is really good. I do like the song a lot.
Yeah,
this is my favorite Flasher song.
Yeah, I would probably say the same thing. Yeah, this song and this album are both just like, for me personally, they are right up there in the sort of canon of music that has, I don't know, meant the most to me over the past few years. You know, like this, I don't know what it is about this album in particular, but it's just so catchy and infectious. It just really stuck in my mind. You know, like I very heavily associate it with, you know, like the time that it came out, which was, I guess, the summer of 2018, which I was going through some very shitty personal stuff at the time, but you know, this album, you know, sort of it served as a light throughout that. You know, it really helped keep my spirits up in a lot of ways, and I'm glad it did that.
Yeah, this album to me is like the epitome of like a realm of post-punk that I didn't see many people in this era really pursue, which is the kind of post-punk that feels very like polished and pristine and almost feels like it could have come out of like the really sort of like groove-driven stuff of the 80s, more so than like the kind of quote-unquote angular, harsher, or like more leaning on the punk elements. It feels very much of a kind of post-punk that like I would have liked to see more post-punk into the like later parts of the 2010s pursue, and like, but this is still like a really good like benchmark for it. It just suddenly hit me that I have a story of my own, which is that same time that I saw Flasher open for Breeders. It was like shortly after the second time I saw Priest, which was at Basilica Soundscape, this like really cool experimental festival thing that runs in upstate New York out of like an actual like abandoned basilica. But like I saw Priest and noticed that Taylor wasn't in the band, and then I see Breeders like a couple months later, and I'm like, oh, I like saw Taylor in the crowd. I'm gonna just go like chill and like make small talk, and I like mentioned something about like Priest to be like, oh yeah, I was like surprised why I didn't see you in there. And this was before like he like publicly acknowledged that like he was basically leaving the band. He's like, yeah, I'm not a part of them anymore. It was just like this like very awkward thing of like, oh, okay. Which like I imagine that like he's still on somewhat good terms, but like it was just very funny to just kind of like walk into that ensnarement.
Yeah, I think a few months ago, I think like Taylor and GL and Danielle posted like a little reunion photo of them together.
Aww.
So it's like it seems like they're on good terms. Like I assume Katie would have that photo.
I know that like early on in the pandemic, Sister Polygon were doing like, you know, YouTube streams for charity and stuff, and Taylor joined in on a few of those. So I know that like Taylor and Katie are still on good terms, or at least they were in 2020.
Yeah, I would assume they're also on good terms. I think they just realized like I think they just realized like, hey, something is not working creatively with this band anymore, and we probably just need to like let's just not force this any further.
Yeah.
You know, like again, they're all doing pretty well. You know, they're all doing their own thing. You know, like again, more people should probably check out that Katie record from earlier this year. I need to check out GL's new band, and I also need to listen to the new Flasher record also. But,
yeah, I guess I should like go into some more detail about that Flasher show that I went to that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it was on the day that their new album got released, and like, you know, I had listened to the album a few times, and you know, I liked it because, you know, I like the band in general, and you know, even though their previous bassist had left, you know, like there was still, you know, some of that same spark that, you know, that had captured my attention about the original. But their new live lineup, so they brought in 2 new touring members to replace their old bassist, and one of them is Sean Durham, who was, I think, the founding drummer for Snail Mail. And
oh, interesting.
And she was, you know, playing a bunch of, you know, different instruments on stage depending on the song, like, you know, drums, guitar, bass, etc. And honestly, like, she is, I would say, a solid 40% of the reason that I loved that show so much. She is just like a ball of energy live. It is absolutely ridiculous to like I was I think I posted about this afterwards. Like, you have never seen somebody hit a wood block with this much enthusiasm. But they're still really great live. What can I say?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Let's move on to our next song then. What is our next song, Jenna?
Okay, our next song is "Leave Town" by Bacchae.
Alrighty. I have not heard this band. I think pretty much these last three songs. Obviously, I know our next artist very well. I have never heard this artist or the last one, so I would love to hear a little more because I really dug the song.
These Bacchae and the Spring Silver, who we're gonna get to later. Yeah, they're. I don't want to say that they like haven't broken out much beyond DC, because I think they have to an extent, but they're definitely still fixtures of the local scene more than anything else. Like, at least I don't think they're touring all that much. Like, most of their shows are still in the DC area. But I have overheard Bacchae practicing at the same drum studio where I practice. So that was a fun moment. Like, I was just hanging out in the lobby after I was done practicing, and I was like, wait, hold on a second, I recognize that song coming from downstairs.
Rock. You've shared a number of stories like that. Like, it's wild to see like the DC scenes overlaps like that.
Yeah, like if you get involved enough in the DC independent music scene, like, everybody knows everybody to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
This is a band that I'm not like familiar with at all, and like before I realized that this was all chronological, I just assumed that this was like a band that was a little bit older rather than like this recent. But this song rocks, and I am like very into like the vocal deliveries here. I feel like it's very of a piece with a lot of the kind of like female fronted like post-punk that's been going around in like the last half decade, and so like it's, I don't know, this rocks. I gotta check them out more.
I was you're like, oh, why this is really good. Like, why didn't this break out beyond the DC scene? Looking at this record came out on Get Better Records on March 6th, 2020.
Oh.
So one of many bands that were like, oh, March, that's a great time to put out a record, right? Not in 2020. It was not. Actually, probably one of the worst times you could have put out a record.
I'm gonna make it hit. I'm gonna give me some time. I'm gonna let it cook.
I mean, I think like so many like memory hole classics came out during this time. Obviously, the Childish Gambino album. That there was, which if you're wondering, there was a. We're not joking. This is real. There was a Childish Gambino record,
and it was dated. The album name is the exact date that basically like everything shut down, which is like it's really prophetic in retrospect.
Genuinely impressive. Just like genuinely impressive. But this song is sick. I gotta check out more from this band. I also like the album cover. It's got the little butterfly Rorschach.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Rorschach chest.
That's okay. You gotta get it to Brad first.
Brad Brains, Rorschach chest. I know these names better than my own grandmother's. Jesus Christ. Good song. I gotta listen to this record. Was there anything else, or we would move on to our second to last song?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have all that much to say about this. Actually no, I do have something that I only just noticed this when I was like listening to the playlist for the final time in preparation for this recording. But and I don't know if this was intentional, but given the DC connection, it seemed too interesting to not mention. The chorus of this song, it's basically exactly the same tune as part of Break In by Fugazi, and I don't know if that was intentional, like I said, but it was definitely notable enough to catch my ear.
Well, if you ever come across them while you're in the drum rehearsal again, you have something to bring up to them.
Yeah.
I guess that leads us to our next song then, which is what's our next song, Jenna?
Okay, our next song is Mustang by Bartees Strange.
Oh boy. Here's where the takes really start flying out. In the case of like Priest, is disbanded at this point. Flasher is active, but here is a very active artist that's currently seemingly on the upswing that I've got takes about. Some of which are more personally tied to me that I cannot reveal in this podcast. So if you want to hear my takes, I don't know, get in the Discord. I'm an open book in the Discord. Unless you're a publicist, which unless you're one of the subjects that you would think I'd be talking about. If so, save your money. But for stuff I can say, this record is really goddamn good, and this song is fucking great. And everything since then, it's been a big pile of mid since then, especially the new record is 4AD debut, Farm to Table, is one of the most mid records of the year. There was like a really bad blog that came out about Bartees Strange, which, here's the thing. If someone wants to put their criticisms towards Bartees and towards that record, I'm usually on board, but like, you gotta be your takes have to be impressively bad for me to be like, all right, dude, like, come on, you're reaching way too far. But I do agree the assessment that person came to of, that record is pretty mid and is not really a good showcase of Bartees' talents, and really feels like the potential that he had on this record is just not being met, and it's kind of sad.
I haven't listened to this album since 2020, but like, I forgot how much I like this song, and like, Boomer was the one that I gravitated a little bit more toward in 2020, but like, this one has like a sound that I can only describe as like, this would rock in a Tony Hawk and or Burnout game. Like, it has like, I think it's that synth sound just makes it feel like driving and full of life. And admittedly, I've only like heard maybe half of one of the new songs on like one of like my local alternative radio stations, but I could not tell you what that fucking thing sounds like at all.
Well, what's your like big college station? I'm trying to remember.
Radio K is the one here, but it was it was the one that I heard on is the Current, which is like the more, it's like NPR owned. Yeah. Like I said, I work in radio, as many people know. So I'm always curious. We can talk
people's
goss.
like the Radio K people are very good. I've had pretty positive experiences with them in my brief dealings with them. They're very good. They're very nice, good people. Bartees Strange, however, like, here's the thing. I saw Bartees earlier this year live, before Farm to Table came out. I saw him opening for Car Seat Headrest before Will Toledo just became the character in SpongeBob that's just constantly ill and sick and injured. I don't remember what that character's name is, but you know the one I'm talking about.
The one with glass bones and paper skin.
Exactly, yeah. Before he became that character full time, which in serious, Will Toledo get better soon. Like, again, Matt Lowe's my album of the year. I thought he was great when I saw him earlier this year. Really sad that he just hasn't been able to like fully recover from his health. Hopefully, again, he's able to rest up and get through this. Will Toledo, our boy Dave Navarro. But I saw Bartees open for him, and I thought his set was great. And I thought, the songs off this record sound really fantastic live, and stuff that was going to be on the new record, like, I thought that sounded really good too. But just recording wise, just a lot of the songs did not land. I feel like it seemed like that record, it really leaned towards his like less energetic side, his slower side. And that's just not where Bartees is at his best. Like, there's obviously some experimental edges to Live Forever. Like there's Fleegaga, which I really like, but it just seemed like he was kind of doubling down in some ways in his most boring impulses. It's just a case where it's like, here's this like cool, interesting indie artist that was like kind of basically, because TV on the radio basically doesn't exist anymore. Like, hey, here's this guy who's like putting together like very similar music to them, this like very energetic alt indie rock. And he's just like doing these like acoustic songs just aren't very good and just don't play to his strengths at all as a songwriter.
That's what I feared.
And rumor has it he's going to keep going down that direction. You didn't hear it from me, but I've heard
But
it.
anyway, we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss what is, in my opinion, his best song from his first album.
Absolutely, and this song is great. It's like I'm only mean because I know he can do better, and this song is just it's fucking proof that he could be one of this generation's best one of this generation's best songwriters, in the sort of indie sphere. But like he's very much trying to appeal to like an NPR core crowd. Like that man is trying to win a fucking Grammy, and I can't blame him. But it's like, dude, come on, you could do better.
Yeah, to transfer things back to like this song, what it sounds like it's a problem not only in the songwriting but also like, again, I have not listened to the new one in the production, which like I remember toward the end of 2020, like when like Live Forever was getting like the traction that it did, he did like a whole like breakdown with some site where it was basically he had like the entire layout and was like walking it through like track by track of like how he put together Boomer, and it was one of those things where like seeing it laid out that way and like seeing him walk through it, I was like, oh, you are still like a DIY artist in a lot of regards. Like you are still like constructing these things on your own and then like having production tweak it up, but you are very much still kind of in control of it. And I'm wondering if like that is like the shift that is taking him like into different mid-ish territory. I don't know.
Yeah. I think, it's just like, it seems like Farm to Table. I mean, I don't know the full story. I think he had those songs like pretty much written. Most of that album was written by the time. Well, actually, I think Jenna, you told me something that like maybe.
Oh yeah. He mentions in the liner notes of Farm to Table that like it was originally just supposed to be a 4-song EP or something, and then the reason that it comes up in the liner notes is because he's like thanking the people who encouraged him to make it a full album as opposed to just leaving it there. But yeah,
what are those names? What are those names? I want to know those names.
No. But yeah, he was playing a few songs when I saw him live in like I guess fall of 2021. Where that didn't end up on the album, and I thought those songs were good, so I don't know what happened to them, if they're gonna show up on the next album or what. But anyway, so with regards to this first album, Live Forever, I mean, one of my like eternal regrets is probably going to be not putting this album as my album of the year for 2020. I put Wolf Parade's Thin Mind as my album of the year that year, just because it was the album that I had like listened to the most. But in retrospect, I think Live Forever is much more of like the sound that is going to, at least I hope, is going to define the 2020s going forward. Like there's just so many songs in this album. Like besides Mustang, we've got Boomer, we've got Stone Meadows, we've got Far, like songs that just they're doing stuff that's just like really inventive and pushing boundaries. And one thing that I really like about Mustang is like it's got like multiple parts within the song that could be the hook, but it's like one of them is the pre-chorus and one of them is the chorus and one of them is the bridge, and it's like just packing all this energy and songwriting capability into one 4-minute package.
I was gonna say, if we want to build in a natural segue, Maddie was talking about Bartees opening for somebody else on tour. I was going to say that we're one of the openers on Bartees' tour, who was playing the New England East Coast dates, doing the whole tour. I would have probably ended up seeing Bartees, but that is our segue into the very last artist that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay, so closing out this playlist, we have Little Prince by Spring Silver.
I'm going to get my bias on the record, which is that I am very Spring Silver and I are like kind of we're kind of on good terms. I've interviewed them twice now for like the last site that I wrote for Alston Pudding, but like just very chill, like down to earth, like DIY artist. And
yeah, I've never met them personally, but like from their online presence, I can tell that they would probably just be a very cool person to hang out with.
But yeah, It's very funny because I do have like an origin story with how I even was listening to Spring Silver. So before I even like interview them for anything, it was I in 2019 I was getting like targeted Facebook ads for this like random album that was just like literally all it said was like queer metal and a bunch of lightning emojis, and it was for their debut, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm seeing this everywhere. It's and so I listened to it and I'm like, oh, this is pretty sick, because it was like their debut is very like kind of like proggy in a way that is like a little it's got like a lot more like winding song structures and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's very expansive.
Yeah, and this one is like way more kind of like direct pop influenced.
Yeah,
but
it's tight. It's to the point.
Yeah, but no, it's yeah, I do like how they like traverse a bunch of like different styles even while they're doing that. Like there's stuff the song like right after this one on the record, Fetch, is basically like a Lost Crying song almost. There's stuff like that's like kind of more metal influenced. It's, I don't know, they're cool. They're cool and a good poster.
Yeah. This album that it's from, I could get used to this. It's probably in my top 10 albums of the year. You know, I'm still like trying to work out where everything falls, but I would say that there is definitely a good chance of this ending up in my 10. It's just really solid. You know, there's you know, so many interesting ideas going on. I'm just like looking at the track list now. You've got like I Saw Violence, which is like a really, you know, it's about like a sort of right-wing rally that turned into, you know, a fist fight. It's just, you know, it's really it's intense, but you know, it's really good. There's I think Plead Insanity has some Bartees strange backing vocals on it.
Bartees and Sadie from Speedy Ortiz. Yeah. But yeah, like this I've been doing list crunching for writing purposes because it is fully list season in the music sphere. Do not let anybody tell you different. On like October fucking 31st, I got an email being like, hey, it's list season time. Sorry, I don't make the rules. But like this got like edged out of my top 10, but it sat there for like a good portion of the year. Good record. Definitely recommend for folks who want something a little more off the beaten path.
Yeah, it's also, in my opinion, it's evidence of the value of album sequencing. Like, you know, in a lot of other albums, I feel like you would have all of the killer tracks towards the front. At least I've found recently that a lot of albums are just tending to be more and more front loaded recently. And this one, you know, you've got the real bangers all the way through. So you never lose too much interest. You know, there's always something to bring you back.
Yeah, you got the headbanger about voyeur porn right at the end.
Oh yeah, set up a camera.
Hot tip for any new bands coming up, new bands, new artists. This is an exclusive take. All right. Usually I'd have you pay me money to make this, you know, to hear this take from me. Okay. Like I'm giving this to you for free. Make all the songs good.
Yeah.
Make
Simple
all the songs
as that.
good. Simple as that. Seems crazy, but make all the songs good. Just why is it so hard? Why is it so hard for so many of these artists to not make all the songs good? You know, like, you know, our you know, look, and this is a lesson that I learned from my good friend Clappy Good Songs. And you know why it's called Clappy Good Songs? Because all the songs are good. That's why.
He knows this.
And that's the lesson I leave off for you for this episode on DC songs. But the song is good. I like the song. I need to check out this record. As I'm also in my 2022 catch-up bag, even though I'm not like Natalie, where I'm not like no publications like, hey, give me your list. It's like we're gonna be obviously doing the podcast list, and also it's just like I was homesick today from work, so I was like, well, I actually have time to myself to listen to records, so I'm gonna try to catch up a little bit on some stuff I've not heard yet. So yeah, this is again. So yeah, that I mean, any final thoughts? This is a great playlist. Like I'm gonna probably just post this in the description if you guys have not heard this. This is just like a really good, like if you're just wanting to get more in the music of DC, this is a great primer for like for a very short playlist, it's a nice primer of just like the scene from its inception to its current state.
Yeah, this is probably one of the like most consistent playlists on any episode I've been on, and like now that I've been on 2 Jenna made playlist episodes, I can say that we can safely call her Jenna Good Playlists.
Why, thank you.
Jenny, thank you for coming on so much. Anything you want to plug before we head out?
No, I don't really think so. Thank you for having me. Hope to be back sometime.
Yeah. I got something to plug. Got our Patreon to plug. Patreon.com/Indieheads podcast. Guys, my rent is $5 a month, and it's a lot of money, and I need your help. You know, I'm hosting these episodes, I'm recording them, I'm editing them. You know, like, and then my rent is $5 a month, which is that's just crazy for Los Angeles, California. That's just absurd. You know, I gotta be fucking Richie rich to be paying that rent. So but for real, Patreon, I mean, right now, I mean, hey, we're putting out more content than ever because of it. Of course, we have our new series FYC, which the day we're recording this episode, our episode on Always just came out for our for everyone on the main feed. But if you support us on Patreon, of course, you get episodes 48 hours early, all of our mainline episodes and upcoming miniseries, like eventually when we do a new season of Best You Pod and a secret series that we're working on behind the scenes that we'll reveal some details about around the end of the year, beginning of the year. And then also FYC, you get those episodes 1 week early before anybody else. So hey, Patreon out, pretty good deal. And also get in our Discord server, which I think is, in my opinion, it's my go-to place to discuss any music whatsoever. And so if you're a fan of this podcast and you've been listening to us for some time, get in the Discord. It's a great time, great community. If you want to hear all about Brian Pumper and Chubby Checker, but also drone music and the movies and weed and alcohol and dating apps, it's the place to be.
I feel like you're giving a very different picture of what the Discord server is.
We discussed those
about.
all at once. They're all interrelated.
It's all together all at once.
Look, sometimes you're crossfaded on dating apps and you're bringing up Brian Pumper as your Tinder anthem.
Well, that's Max. That's literally Max. Max. Again, the number of women that Max has gotten to listen to Brian Pumper is plural. It's a plural number. It's more than one, probably more than two. Again, that boy is going crazy in the triangle areas. Him and AJ call it. But yeah, that is it. We will see you all next week. As next week, we'll have a returning guest and a first-time guest that put out one of my favorite records of the year so far. So, very, very excited for that episode. And yeah, we'll see you all next week, and then we'll see you, later on for the next FYC and all that shit. So yeah, bye-bye.
Can't even read. Nigga been suck dick for China. show me part two. I'm flip QP like Taekwondo. I'ma name this shit Q-Rick. Got my name in your mouth like a big dick. Take a bitch OT, let her suck dick. My bags look like Jasmine. Got niggas look like hoes.